How's everyone doing this morning? All right. My name is David Clement, and I will be your worship associate this morning. So welcome everybody in the sanctuary. Get a little closer. Is that better? Okay. Welcome to everyone in the sanctuary and to everyone online out there. And we are the Unitarian Universalist congregation of Flint, an inclusive, progressive, and LGBTQ affirming church, and we're happy to have you all here with us. If you'd like more information about the church or Unitarian Universalism, please feel free to contact one of our ministers or our office, and that contact information can be found at our website, uuflint.org. Okay, we have a few announcements. And of course, more information on these and more can be found in your weekly e-update. If you'd like to get the once weekly email newsletter, please fill out one of the cards in the seat backs and place it in the basket as you leave, or scan the QR code on the order of service. We're supporting the homeless who stay in the 3 hotels just across Miller Road who are in need of hygiene items that are not provided by the hotels. There's a tub in the narthex for drop-off, and a list of items is available as well. See Revlynn with questions. And these right here are the needs that the homeless have, personal care items and other items, and those are available right in the back there on the table. Please plan to be here Friday, November 18th at 7 o'clock to hear important and well-known author Dr. John Paul. Did I pronounce that right? Dr. Paul is a progressive history professor and will speak about his new book about a Muslim scholar in America who dared to speak in favor of interreligious dialogue, making the Turkish government declare him their #1 enemy. This even should draw many visitors who don't know our congregation. So we truly hope many of you will attend this event and show our guests that we are allies with everyone who is interested in the learning of truth about all religions. 2 important announcements about November 20th. First, as part of the service, we'll be welcoming new members. It's been a long time, so anyone who has signed the book and would like to be recognized, or people who are already ready to become new members at this time, should contact Revlynn for more information. After the service on the 20th, once folks have a bite to eat at 12 o'clock, please join us back in the sanctuary for a fun-filled workshop on planning your memorial service. Yes. Folks, I don't write it. I just read it. We'll help prepare to make your final wishes crystal clear to your survivors. Jerry and Lynn will try to answer your questions and promise this will be lighthearted and helpful for everyone, no matter what your age. Finally, 2 Thanksgiving announcements. If you don't have plans on Thanksgiving Day, come to UUCF on the 24th for a feast with friends. If you can, consider bringing some foods to share. Let us know you are coming so we have enough of the essentials. Volunteers for the cleanup crew would be appreciated. We, of course, want to share on Thanksgiving, so we've invited children from the Boys and Girls Club, Whaley's Children's Center, and the Reach Runaway Program. And we also have invited the very low-income and sometimes homeless residents of the 3 nearby motels I mentioned earlier. We hope to make this a memorable Thanksgiving for everyone. And give everyone a Thanksgiving gift by telling us what you are thankful for. Send Revjerry an email or text about what you are thankful for to be a part of a slideshow for our Thanksgiving service and our Thanksgiving meal on the 24th. Now, I was told not to go off script today, or it was implied, but the theme is sports, so I have some sports jokes for you. The depressing thing about tennis is that no matter how good I get, I'll never be as good as a wall. How do you get a Michigan State graduate off of your porch? Pay him for the pizza. What's the difference between baseball and politics? In baseball, you're out if you get caught stealing. And some great Yogi Berras. 90% of the game is half mental. And my favorite Yogi Berra, even Napoleon had his Watergate. And then because I'm a referee, this is my last one, my referee joke. Why will all the referees check their voicemail immediately after the Super Bowl? So they can hear someone say, no missed calls. With that, we will do our chalice lighting. We light this chalice to affirm that new light is ever waiting to break through to enlighten our way. And please read with me our covenant. Recognizing the richness of diversity, the beauty and wonder of shared worship, and the transforming power of love and service, we gather as a sacred, intentional community to freely seek knowledge and truth, to celebrate the fullness of life, and by our actions to increase goodness and justice.
Well, at least it was jokes and not your manifesto. So. Our opening words are in honor of Election Day, and they are from John Lewis. It was not enough to come and listen to a great sermon or message every Sunday morning and be confined to those four walls and those four corners. You had to get out and do something. Nothing can stop the power of a committed and determined people to make a difference in society. Why? Because human beings are the most dynamic link to the divine on this planet.
Join me in our hymn on page 131 of the black hymnal, Love Will Guide Us.
After our spoken meditation and silence today, our musical meditation will begin, and you're invited to light candles of joy or concern up front or in the rear. And you may also choose to write in the book, and we will be happy to publicize your joy or concern in the e-update. Our words for meditation today are from the thoughts of President Teddy Roosevelt, and it may be a familiar piece for some of you. It's entitled, "In the Arena." The credit belongs to the one who is actually in the arena, whose face is marred by dust and sweat and blood, who strives valiantly, who errs, who comes up short again and again, because there is no effort without error and shortcoming, but who actually strives to do the deeds, who knows great enthusiasms, the great devotions, who spends their self in a worthy cause, who at best knows in the end the triumph of high achievement, or at worst, if they fail, at least fails while daring greatly, so that their place shall never be with those cold and timid souls who neither know victory nor defeat. As we sit in silence today, may we find the place of peace and power that is at the center of our being. Amen and blessed be.
Our reading this morning is about the historic soccer games between Russia and Great Britain right after World War II. It was described at the time as war without the shooting. The cloud of World War II had dissipated with Japan's final surrender in August of 1945. The atmosphere in southwest London was one of joyful celebration, unbridled freedom, and keen anticipation. The long fight that both Britain and the USSR endured in World War II, along with the enormous sacrifices Soviet citizens suffered against the Nazis, had made the Russian people hugely popular in Britain. But now, there was suspicion and distrust because the Soviets were occupying most of Eastern Europe. So, the English Football Association asked a Russian soccer team to come play in Great Britain in the hope of improving the relationship between their countries. It seemed like a good idea at the time. They would play 4 games. In the first game in Chelsea, the desire to see the match was insatiable. Some forced their way into adjoining houses to get a view from second-story windows. Others followed rail and tube lines around the stadium to get in unseen. Steeplejacks and military men used ropes to climb up the backs of the stands and sat precariously 100 feet up on the stadium roofs. The official attendance was about 75,000. It was clearly closer to 100,000. In the early exchanges, Chelsea struggled to cope with the pass and move style of the Russians. The home side was on the ropes, but completely against the run of the play, Chelsea took a 2-0 lead, profiting from a defensive mix-up. The Russians came back, though. At 65 minutes, Vasily Kartsev took a pass from Yevgeny and passed 2 defenders, and from the edge of the penalty area, drove his shot into the goal. With a quarter of an hour left, the Russians' team scored with a cross shot that deflected into the Chelsea net. It was now 2-2. The home side now surged forward, but the Russian goalkeeper made a number of incredible saves, and the enormous crowd often cheered the Russian for his heroic play. Near the end of the game, the British team pulled ahead 3-2, but in a rousing finish, Vsevolod Radakorsky won the ball and passed it to Yevgeny, who sent over a cross to Bobrov. Bobrov smashed it home. The British crowd roared. They roared their approval for the Russians. When the final whistle sounded at a tie game of 3-3, crowds streamed onto the field, picking up some of the Russian players and carrying them into the tunnel. Perhaps, with the game ending in a tie, it was somehow easier for the Brits to admire their rivals. But something, for some reason, beautiful happened that day. The next 3 games would be very different. The Russian team was greeted warmly in the coal fields of South Wales, but the warmth went away when the Russians beat them 10-1. Then things got even worse during the next 2 games. The Russians suspected the British were fixing the game and insisted that the match be officiated by their Russian referee. As far as the English fans were concerned, the Russians were no longer heroic allies who helped them defeat the Nazis. Punches were thrown at both games, and fans unfairly booed penalties called by the Russian referee. The Russian captain tackled a British forward, cutting his head open in the process. The forward threw off the Russian with an elbow, giving the defender a black eye. With the 1-loss count at 2 games each, just over a month after the Russians had arrived in Britain, they were summoned back to Moscow. BBC radio announced, "The Russians have gone." Such was the impact of their visit. Listeners immediately knew which Russians were being referred to. after they left, a young George Orwell, long before he wrote his famous novel, 1984. He said, "If you wanted to add to the vast fund of ill will existing in the world at the moment, you could hardly do it better than by a series of football matches between Jews and Arabs, Germans and Czechs, Indians and British, Russians and Poles. Each match to be watched by a mixed audience of 100,000 spectators." Russia's football playing tour of Great Britain was really war minus the shooting.
This song was written by Mr. Tom Lehrer as an answer to the rather aggressive-sounding fight songs we're used to, something a little more genteel, that also helps prove that even nerds can have school spirit. Fight fiercely, Harvard, fight, 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 demonstrate to them our skill. Albeit they possess the might, nonetheless we have the will. How we shall celebrate our victory, we will invite the whole team up for tea, oh jolly. Hurl that spheroid down the field and fight, fight, fight. Fight fiercely, Harvard, fight, fight, fight. Impress them with our prowess, do. Come on, lads, do not let the crimson down. Be of stout heart and true. Come on, chaps, fight for Harvard's glorious name. Would it be peachy if we win the game? Oh, goody, let's try not to injure them. But fight, 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 let's not play rough, though. Fight, 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 and do fight fiercely. Fight, fight, fight.
In about 2.5 days, many of us will be listening anxiously to the news, listening for election results, looking, praying for some hopeful sign that those who would hit 80-year-old people in the head with a hammer or cheer them on for doing so are few in number. I'm pretty sure Election Day will likely bring us mixed messages. Some of the news will give us hope, and some of it will make us despair. My topic today is a bit the same, really. Sports, the game. Today, with Election Day drawing near, I would like to look through a window that opens into the human mind to see what can go so very wrong in there on nearly every human endeavor. That window into the mind is one many of us know and love. Our love of sports, our love of the game. Perhaps we can see how it can be that on one day we are carrying our opponent on our shoulders to celebrate them, and on the very next day, the game we are playing or watching is war minus the shooting. Just about everyone at one time or another loves a game, and it doesn't have to be an Olympic sport to get your competitive blood running. It can be something like a spirited card game of which you are a devoted student. And now, there's even convincing scientific evidence proving that many animals play games not to practice life-giving skills, but to have fun. Many animals play, and now we know even bumblebees like to roll wooden balls just for the fun of it. This new study, reported in the journal Animal Behavior, shows that bumblebees, given the choice of eating or rolling around on a little wooden ball, choose to play ball nearly every time. The scientists say their desire to play proves they have feelings. If insects, even insects, loved to play ball. It's apparent that our human impulse to play a game goes very deep. Too bad, sometimes things go wrong with that impulse. I loved playing high school football. I loved it so much I even sacrificed important parts of my body to the game. Left them right there on the field as though it were a temple. But I also learned about the love of a game as a college student when on Friday and Saturday nights I would go to the library. That sounds sad, I know, but the library was actually the name of a bar on High Street. It was a clever name. So, Jerry, what do you do on weekends when you don't come home? Mom, I just go to the library. And in that bar, called the library, was a table game more dangerous than the pool table that threatened River City, Iowa. It was a foosball table. Foosball, the German word for football, what we also call table soccer. Foosball can be played like a brawl by intoxicated people, as is often the case. Or it can be played like a game of roughneck chess. In other words, it's a lot like many other games. I was no good at pool, so I needed a game to play. And you can't sit in a library, a real library, all of the time. Soon, I was cruising the high street of Columbus, Ohio, going from game room to game room, bar to bar, looking for another match. It was the thrill of victory, and usually for me, the agony of defeat, but without having to put on that hot helmet or shoulder pads. I soon learned that Ohio was awash with foosball tables, and a few of them were even level and not covered by stale beer. So on some weekends, I would drive home to be with my likewise foosball-addicted friends. Together, we would find more river cities with foosball tables waiting to corrupt our souls. As I would get closer to my family home on my drive home, and my family home is near the highest point in Ohio, and there I could look west, out over the broad, blue and beautiful Miami River Valley. I knew there were foosball-playing farm boys out there on the plains beyond the valley, just waiting for a game. Now I know what some of you are thinking. Jerry, you really needed to get a girlfriend or a boyfriend, someone to love. But I was in love already with a game. The consensus is not in. Even a casual survey of the research and opinions on sports will tell you two contradictory things. One, that many sports are often bad for the body because of the repetitive motion injuries, injured knees, concussions, carpal tunnel syndrome that I also call foosball wrist. And it's also said to be bad for the mind because the pressure to win can be overwhelming, especially for children, and leads to all sorts of destructive outcomes. Or, you can also read that it strengthens the body and the mind, and every good parent should get their child involved in sports of some kind. Involved not just in exercise, like running, mind you, but in a competitive game that will build their character so they will make more money later in life. That is one of the claims. Both sides of the debate can cite evidence. The excesses of the big game often turn many of us off. Sports of all types have been monetized, sexualized, scandalized. The disgrace of drug-taking athletes, the fans beating on each other, huge stadiums built with taxpayer dollars, and the endless hype of sports announcers on the sidelines asking the same silly questions to players. What happened out there in the first half? And players who give the same simple answers. Oh yeah, we are just not working as a team out there. What biting insight they have. Players thanking God for their victory when we hope that any real God would be watching over the latest real war, not over a football game. But nevertheless, fight fiercely, Harvard. Fight, fight, fight. Sometimes, when we look at the human mind, if just through the window of sports, we realize that people can screw up just about anything. On Tuesday night, we will know again if people and laws that will correct these man-made screw-ups are winning or losing. How can we have hope? Oddly enough, the answer may be evident in our chasing of the ball. I wonder if what we need in this world are more amateurs. The word amateur does not actually denote a person who is not good at what they do. That's a modern mistake. The root of the word is from the Latin amor, love. So an amateur is a lover. An amateur is simply someone who does something for the pure love of it. It doesn't mean they are no good at it. Just think of how many professionals you have hired who did not love their work enough to do a good job. Perhaps when the world puts material gain before the pure love of the work or of the game, things go wrong. But I'm getting ahead of myself. The answer to the problem, as always, is in the story. Far from the valley, formed by the high street bars and the game rooms, was the Miami Valley of my youth. And there, by the broad Great Miami River, in my own very own River City, was a bar and grill with, you guessed it, a foosball table. It was even level and not sticky with beer, because we leveled it and wiped the beer off. The bar was near a dam on the river and was called the Pines, a fine restaurant by a dam site. Almost as clever a name as the library. A fellow Riverside pirate played foosball there, Terry, son of a very successful chicken farmer. Terry rode an old motorcycle, a Norton 850 Commando, that you had to kickstart. Terry weighed 120 pounds, and the motorcycle weighed nearly 500 pounds. If you have ever kickstarted a motorcycle, you get the picture. He had an amazing pull shot that he learned when we went to see the pros play in Cincinnati. Our typical Friday night of foosball started at the Pines, but few people would play us. Not because of me, I was just a goalie, but they feared Terry's pull shot. So we would drive west to the many flatland bars and game rooms, each with a foos table. Anna, Kettlersville, Botkins, New Knoxville, almost to the Indiana border. Towns with at most one stoplight. But they all had a table, and with just a beer light to guide us, we found them. Of course, there were guys and sometimes gals there who, like bumblebees, or like the new kitten at our house, were going crazy over a rolling ball. They were all amateurs, lovers of the game. Terry and I at least had the insight to know we were crazy. So we often called our game fool's ball, with an emphasis on the word fool. One day in 1978, we decided to drive a little further west to play, and we ended up in Chicago at the Hyatt Regency O'Hare for the World Championships. 300 foosball tables spread out over the convention floor. It was impressive. Sports Illustrated and 60 Minutes covered those tournaments with avid, addicted players, both amateurs and professionals. They traveled across America, following big bucks prize money, with the occasional Porsche or Corvette thrown in as an added incentive. Sports Illustrated once described foosball as a first-class professional sport. Even the players' names, their nicknames were fun. Buffalo Breath, Stoned Wall, and Slash Do Right. My partner and I pretentiously took our name from the characters in Samuel Beckett's theater masterpiece, Waiting for Godot. We were Dee Dee and Go-Go. No one knew what we were talking about, but it was all good fun. Godot, God that is, who we were waiting for, did not show. So it didn't take long for us to get our rear ends kicked. Luckily, I had the solace of being involved, if not in the winner's circle, but as a photographer for the event. Yes, my friends, you are looking at a stringer for the internationally known, now defunct publication, Foos News. I believe we have a slide of it. There it is. My partner and I, I should mention that I didn't make any money, perhaps $100 at best. So it didn't ruin my amateur status. It's the worst sport in the world to photograph. You mainly get just pained facial expressions, gritted teeth, tongues between tightly pursed lips. Yes, I was a professional, and after making $100, that was pretty much the end of my stringer career. And of course, it wasn't about the money. 99% of all of those involved with playing foosball did it just for the love of it. The amour, the love of the game, and making pictures of it goes back a long, long way. Some 16,000 years ago, a cave person artist in what is now Lascaux, France, was so moved by the athletic feats of the tribe's sprinters and swimmers that he or she painted pictures of their efforts on the cave walls. The Lascaux caves were not places where people lived. They were like temples. The paintings were not living room decorations, but instead spoke of sacred things. The herds of animals, the hunters, the athletes, everything painted there in that timeless darkness were sacred things. Sacred things live not just in the field of time, but in eternity as well. It seems to me that we don't honor our games, our athletes, in the same manner anymore. I think some good coaches emphasize the love of the game, even the holiness of competition for its own sake. But winning and the prestige and the money that come with it, that is what our children most often learn about. We don't teach our children about the love that lies beyond the eternal, peaceful impulse to chase a ball just for the fun of it. What they learn is primarily about the material world of winning, and that, I think, is the big problem. As I mentioned, when Terry and I were in Chicago, we did not have to worry about being corrupted by the material world problem of foosball prize money. In fact, the story that I will call Dee Dee and Go-Go Escape from Chicago is a good example of what the love of a game without gain is all about. At 2 a.m. in the morning, we realized we were too tired to stay and watch the winners' match. A real professional photographer would shoot it, so I was free to leave. We were also totally broke and could not afford another expensive night in the Hyatt. Windless, penniless, and dead tired, we quickly packed our bags and trudged wearily to the parking garage. Then, as we tried to exit the parking garage, we came to a gate into which you insert a material thing called money so you can get out of the garage. Who would have guessed this? We had none of that material thing. Our fatigue and the moment of panic resulted in Terry's bright idea that he could perhaps lift up a little bit on the wooden bar that blocked our path. He got out of the car and lifted it, and it broke off in his hands. He stood there with that red and white striped board in his hands for the longest time, and I, who was just his goalie, told him to get the heck into the car so we could get the heck out of there. For all I knew, breaking out of a Chicago parking lot could get you some jail time. We swiftly pulled out onto the broad, vacant streets of 2 a.m. downtown Chicago. Not so fast as to draw attention, but not too slow either. Tired, windless, but for some reason happy. We started laughing insanely at our desperate country boy getaway. We had been part of the big game, learned a few tricks about push kicks and pull kicks, and the guys in River City, Ohio, would know about it. When the rest of life is oh so complicated, the pure love of the game can be a simple, beautiful thing. Obviously, when you dare look inside the human mind through the window of their games, you can see innocent bumblebees and kittens joyfully placing balls and fans carrying opponents on their shoulders. But you also see a destructive monster whose name is winning, money, prestige, and personal gain are everything. A long name for a big monster. You see the beautiful and the ugly all together, and today's and Tuesday's election results will be the same, I'm sure. So, where's the hope for the victory of compassion, justice, and reason we so desire? The answer is an old one. There is an enduring love for others and the world that is deep inside of us, and it will give us the ability and the courage to suffer our defeats and to fight again. The enduring love we have for everything good in this world, like the love of a simple game, will help us continue our humane fight for what we know is right. Some will not find this answer satisfying, and that is understandable. But if we think winning is the final thing in life, we are defeated already. It can sound so trite, so cliche to say it, but life is a game with very high stakes of life and death, wealth and poverty, sickness and health, joy and despair. But if we possibly can, it's best to play the game with love in our hearts. And that can bring real victories at times, even victories at the ballot box that cannot be won in any other way. But it also brings the victory of peace of mind, and that will always be the greatest victory. So Tuesday night, when the other team scores on you, on us, we shouldn't lose our cool. We should just look across the table and ask politely, "Is that your best shot?" It works every time. Thank you.
Today I live, I want to be a day to give the best of me. I'm only one, but not alone. My finest day is yet unknown. I broke my heart for every gain. To taste the sweet, I faced the pain. I rise and fall, yet through it all, this much remains. I want one moment in time when I'm all that I thought I could be, when all of my dreams are a heartbeat away, and the answers are all up to me. Give me one moment in time when I'm racing with destiny. Then in that one moment of time I will feel eternity. You're a winner for a lifetime if you seize that one moment in time. Make it mine. Give me one moment in time when I'm more than I wanted to be, when all of my dreams are a heartbeat away, and the answers are all up to me. Give me one moment in time when I'm rearing with destiny. Then in that one moment of time I will be it will be free. I will be free.
Is our time for generosity now. We offer our gifts of time and talent and treasure to work for justice, to create a safe space for all who come to explore and to heal those hurting. Please help by placing your offering in the basket at the back of the church, using the QR code on the back of your order of service, or for those of you at home, at uuflint.org. Thank you for your generosity.
And appropriately, our closing words are those of Olympic gymnast Mary Lou Retton. Each of us has a fire in our hearts for something. It's our goal to find it and to keep it lit.
And let us extinguish our chalice. We extinguish this flame but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again.